Well, my name is Riccardo. I didn't see the presentation from John before, and do you think the government could borrow it to see what happens with Brexit and maybe help them to take a view and a decision on the performance? I don't know. Sorry, it just crossed my mind. I couldn't resist to say that. Yes, I'm an urban designer. I've been around for 2 and something years at Steer. And I'm not going to be very technological about it. So it's going to be a bit of a departure. I'm going to jump on the other side of the fence and try to take a look at driverless car, possibly with different eyes. So we embarked in this project more than a year ago, and thank you for giving me the time, and not just me, but to stop and think, not having to deal constantly with clients, but actually having to think about what the implication for driverless cars could be on cities, and try to contribute to the debate. There is potentially a revolution around the corner, and we're really keen to make sure that we keep a human scale to it, and we don't recreate issues that we had in the past. So I start from this because I think this sparked by, this started our questions. Do we need to do anything? It's not auto-distraction, good. When we talk about driverless cars and cities, there is a massive amount of naivety, we think. And this is a picture by Daimler, so a manufacturer. And then when you start looking at what we as built environment professionals come up with, is very similar, which to me is very worrying, because we should have a different agenda, let's say. So we should really make sure that the environment is a bit better and definitely not idealized. You can have, I don't think you're going to have unicorns and barbecues on the streets with driverless cars. And I see too often a lot of us going around and predicating, the beauty of the driverless car world. And we observe that the current approach tends to be led, and all the debate is all led by the technologists and the manufacturers. We definitely have an interest in that, a vested interest. We tend to focus a lot on opportunities rather than the issues that could be created by driverless cars. We tend to focus on public realm more than all the other implications on cities. It's a bit tokenistic. We struggle to step back and look at the bigger picture of cities. And then we very often ignore the human behaviors, side effects, or maybe there are also good things about it, but we definitely don't focus a lot on that and focus too much on the technology. And especially the last one is a biggie, because we tend to focus on the long-term scenario where there are no manual cars. We all happily switch to driverless cars, and it's all amazing. The problem by leaving the debate in the hands, mainly, I think we're making progress, and more people start talking about driverless car outside the technology world, if you like. But if we leave the debate to be in the hands of manufacturers and technologists, I think we risk to simplify the city, which is, in a way, the opposite of what cities are. Cities are always been appealing for being unpredictable and a surprise and engaging and exciting. And there is a risk that we go back to the 60s potentially, just for the sake of accelerating adoptions, because these things would really welcome, I guess, a very simple environment that is easy to read, and you remove the unpredictable. So the question is, do we really want our cities to be around the vehicles again? We're done in the 60s, and thank you, as an urban designer, I get plenty of work because of the mess that we did from the 60s to the late 80s, and we keep unpicking the same stuff, and plenty of work, but I could really do with better cities. So what we did was looking at one of the possible scenarios. It's not very scientific in the traditional sense. It's an exploration, if you like, a design exploration. So we did quite a lot of brainstorming. Sounds very exotic, but we just met in a room and start seeing what our city could be or could need. And we did a lot of these with our colleagues in the intelligent mobility team, together with the urban design team. And then we started understanding what a solution or a possible response to the current challenges could be, and start testing them in two environments. Shoreditch, simply because it's around the corner, I know it quite well, and I don't live far, so if I had to go and check things, I could do it easily. Very scientific. And the other is LA downtown, because we happen to have an office there, and a colleague that was helping on the research was based there. So we then massage our conclusions, and we went to publish and disseminate. We basically, me, like now, going to talk to you about this. But also the work has developed further, and we are now publishing a book for the RIBA where we expand on this initial research that we did at STEER. So nothing mind-blowing if you look at these human versus tech-centric principles. It's about creating place. So, but I think it's important to remind ourselves that we should keep doing that, even with driverless cars. So we still need to keep designing streets and not roads, make it legible for people. Even if driverless cars will be able to scan and understand everything or predict, we still have people, humans on the road, on the street, I should say. Sharing should be prioritized, because there's a massive risk that driverless cars only expand the demand for travel. Think about the person with a mobility issue, or I don't know, a granny or a teenager. They could, just inflate the demand for travel, and the current models for transport are not gonna be able to give us an answer in advance. By the way, because we're not there, so we don't know. How do we go about the old technology? We need to start thinking about that now, and also what we do with the redundant infrastructure of cars. Yes, Shoreditch is very packed, but if you look at LA, 40% of the surface in the city is car parks and car-related infrastructure. Imagine what it means for a city. How you redevelop, what should be changed into, and so on and so forth. And then start taking the opportunity to build in resilience in our cities as an opportunity if we can reallocate space between from the old technology to new technology. So we concluded that the transition time, the next 20 years, is as important as the final picture. So we really should start we need to discuss about this now and not really wait for when the cars are taking over, driverless cars taking over. I think the other big thing is, what do we do with the current infrastructure? How can we use it in a positive way? How can we reallocate space? And also, we talk a lot about pilot project for the driverless cars. I think we should have pilot project for cities and try to be a bit braver in the cities to start implementing projects to understand the actual implication on even human behavior. So we took a look at different areas, as I said, and in particular, we look at Shoreditch. This is the Shoreditch Triangle, which is on the ring roads. We think, and again, this is just a proposal, it's not the answer, it's just one of the different ways you can go about introducing driverless cars in our cities, so that we can have a discussion. And I think the whole point of this work is to provoke, and we're not really confident it's necessarily the best way. But effectively, we are suggesting the creation of a layer network. So you don't touch the main strategic network, because you're still going to have the old cars that needs to aerate the city, but start creating this corridor where first you cater for cyclists and pedestrians, but also introduce a space for driverless cars. You probably start creating a series of hubs that capture the traditional traffic, and maybe help people to switch to driverless cars for the first or last mile, or even better, get them on a cycle or an electric scooter these days. And then complete the route into the city, in this case, by driverless car, shared driverless car. And then potentially you could look at a way to isolate cells in the city and try to start allowing only cars into those areas, and potentially expand the network. It's just a way of doing it. Very quickly, because I'm aware of time, 2 minutes. I normally do this in an hour and a half, so clearly I'm not going to stick to the time given. The point about the strategic road, if you really start looking at the need to have the old cars and the new cars on the road and the fact that you cannot stop the strategic network, if you're lucky, even if you have a driverless car, you're probably just going to fit a cyclist on the side. That's it. But if you start looking at local street, we did some simulation with current prediction about parking required, which is based on the current model, so it's not necessarily accurate, but we added a 20% increase to that just to play safe. We think that in design terms, we could probably scrap 30 to 40% extra space. And obviously that is a massive amount. And what do you do with that space? You provide more space for cars. Clearly, as an urban designer, I say, no, don't do that, please. I think it should be about supporting the vitality of high streets and, again, green, green, green for drainage, microclimate, air quality. You can go on and on and on with that. So I think there's a massive potential in local street, provided that you can maintain the flows going around the city on the strategic network. Yeah, it's not science, but we need to talk about these things because we may end up tomorrow having driverless car and being pushed by the big bucks in that is being thrown into the business and be forced to deal with a solution that is not really a solution. We need to find solution for the solution. Thank you.
So one of the outcomes from having access to a vehicle means that you potentially will be moving more in a vehicle. So where do you sit on the big driverless cars will actually mean that there's more people moving around and there's more vehicles moving around as opposed to less?
I definitely believe that we're gonna, well, actually, let me step back. I remember a lecture ages ago by Peter Hall at my master at UCL, and he was showing a graph about the polycentric city at the time. And I remember that he was showing this graph about the growth, I think it was 2004, 2005, and he was showing the growth in communication technologies and the pattern in air travel, so miles traveled by plane. And basically was making the point that the more we communicate, the more we want to meet, and is not a substitute. And I think that is just naturally in our tendency as human to travel more and to demand more and everything. So I think it's a carrot and stick, and we should definitely make it comfortable, but not too comfortable. Otherwise, we're going to get more people using driverless car and less walking and cycling and become fatter and unhealthy, really, and having less pleasurable cities, actually.